good to be with you. We're in another week of everything you've ever wanted. And so, week after week, we've been in the book of Matthew, and we've been talking about the idea that all of us have longings and desires and dreams and fulfillments that we are looking for, but that we're not going to find them in relationships or really a purpose that we're trying to create or craft ourselves, but that everything you've ever wanted isn't found under a Christmas tree. It's actually found in Jesus Christ. And so that's what we've been unpacking each and every week. And so today we're jumping into Matthew chapter 2. And so before we go there, I just want you to consider just thinking through your life for a moment. How much time and effort, like all the energy that you pour into it, have you put into trying to control things in your life? Like just think about that for a moment. Like all the anxiety, all of the time, all of the energy put towards trying to control whatever it is that's before you. You ever sat and thought about that? Like, you ever sit at night and you can't go to sleep because you're trying to control whatever it is? You can't let it go. You can't stop thinking about it. You just keep working through the issue, through the pressure, through whatever it is. And so whether it's your career, your family, your plans for the future, we pour ourselves into building and protecting these things in our lives. And it's so easy to do. But when something threatens what we've built, man, all of a sudden it gets personal. Doesn't it? It almost feels like your life is fragile. Like the career that you've been building and it's being threatened. The relationship that you've been formulating and, excited about, it brings you all kinds of joy and energy. And then all of a sudden it's exposed that maybe this relationship isn't going to work. And you feel like, I don't know how to move forward because this is where my life is right now. This is the center of who I am, right? Like there's so much around us. And so we all have kingdoms we build in our lives. A kingdom, listen to this, it's anything that gives you identity, meaning, or control in your life. That's how I would mark it. It's what you guard when it feels threatened. It's what you sacrifice for to keep intact. These aren't always bad things either. Like they can be really good things. Like for some of us, the kingdom that we've built is family. It's career. It's future goals. It's things that matter in this world. And these are God's gift to us. The problem is that when Jesus steps into the story, all of a sudden it's not just, oh, he saved me, he's my Messiah. He's more than that. He actually steps into your story, not just to rescue you, he steps into your story to lead you and guide you and sustain you and satisfy you. It's so much more than just, I'm going to get into heaven. It's every area and every part of your life. Like that's the picture. I think about these things that are so fragile in our lives. I think, I grew up going to the beach with my dad, and we would build sandcastles. So just to give you an idea, I'm 6 foot tall. When we built sandcastles, you could almost not see my head. Like that's how low underneath the ground we were because we had dug so much out and we had built them so high. And that we could fit anywhere between 8 and 12 people in them. These things were massive structures. And part of the goal is to say, we are going to build a sandcastle that will last. Doesn't matter what's coming. We're going to build a wall and a structure and a foundation strong enough. But all of us knew in the back of our mind that, before long, probably before the end of the day, the tide's going to come and wipe it all out. It's temporary. And the same is true for so many of us in the kingdoms that we are building, the kingdoms that we have in our lives, right? So what happens, we cling to these kingdoms we built, our success, our comfort, our control, and they might feel secure for a moment, and then all of a sudden we realize, this thing could be taken tomorrow. And it doesn't last in the same way that I thought it once did. And so, Jesus is inviting us to let go of what's temporary, to offer us something so much better. Everything you could ever want is found in him. That's the hope, that's the truth that we see in Jesus. And this is at the heart of the story in Matthew chapter 2. We've got Herod, the Magi, the religious leaders. They all encounter news of a king, Jesus. And they all respond differently, quite differently. And so here's the big idea for today. Here's the truth I want you to actually wrestle with in your own life, okay? The real king threatens every kingdom, including yours. I want you to hear it again. The real king threatens every kingdom, including yours and including mine. And that's what we're going to see in the text. We're going to see it over and over. And so the question is, what will you do when Jesus challenges your kingdom? How are you going to respond? So let's jump in. This is Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. He says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, wise men from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star at its rising and have come to worship him. So we've seen the genealogy, chapter 1. We talked about the birth of Jesus in chapter 1, verses 18 to 25. Now we're in chapter 2. Jesus has been born. And there's this story, this situation. And just like the other ones, it's crazy. There is like mystery, there's irony, there's just craziness going on just like last week. And so what's the picture here? These wise men come from very far away. We're going to dial into that a little bit more in just a second. But they come from a really far distance. They show up at King Herod's place, and they say, hey, we've been following a star, which is crazy, and we want to know where the son, the child, has been born, King of the Jews. And so they're having this interaction on where is this child? That's the picture, which is absolutely crazy. But what is Matthew trying to tell us? What's the context here? After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, which is basically an insignificant, no-name town. Like, nobody cares about Bethlehem. There's nothing special about it. There's no military prowess. The population is low. It would be like me when I first moved here, and they were like, hey, have you heard of Chiliota? And I'm like, where's that? Right? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if I can pronounce that, right? Like, that's the kind of idea. When you hear Bethlehem, they think nothing because it's so insignificant. But what does Matthew know? Matthew knows that all along in the Old Testament, there was pointing to a coming Messiah who would be born where? Bethlehem. This insignificant town in the middle of nowhere, right? That is close to Jerusalem. And what else does it say? Bethlehem of Judea or Judah? What is Matthew trying to say? There is a coming Messiah. The Old Testament prophets have been pointing to it, but not only that, he has to be in the line of Judah. Matthew is saying again, just like last week and the week before, Jesus is the king. There is a child who is coming. They've been prophesying about it for hundreds of years, for thousands of years. Jesus is coming. The child will be born. He's in the line of David. He will be born in Bethlehem, and it's happening. It's happening. And not only that, magi, wise men are coming from really far locations to come and follow him. So let's talk about that. It says wise men from the east. How many of you have heard the song Three Wise Kings? You know, or what is it? Three Kings? What's the title? There you go. It's not real. It's actually false. There's not three. They aren't kings as far as we can tell, which is a little crazy. So I hope we're not singing that in the coming weeks. Haven't even talked to Kyle about it. But it's not a real thing, okay? But who are these wise men? I mean, what comes to your mind when you think wise men? Do you think elders of a church? Like somebody who's going to come and shepherd you? Do you think, man, a life coach in your business and in life? Like, do you go to Dave Ramsey? Sadie Robertson for you young people, or maybe you're in the world of like Pop Warner's everything in your life right now, and so I'm going to go and find the guy who knows all the things, the recruiter. He's going to tell me what to eat, what to drink, how to sleep, where to go, who to talk to. Life coach. What do you think of when you think wise men? Because the actual word is not wise men. The actual word is magi. It's the idea of magic. These are most likely, from all the things that we can see, pagan astronomers who are dialed into mysticism. That's why they're following stars. And these pagan astrologers who are not a part of Judaism are following a star to come and find a child who is born in the middle of nowhere. This is absolutely insane. This is a crazy story. That's why it's not made up. It is crazy. And so there's one who was born in Bethlehem of Judea, days of the King Herod. Wise men from the east arrive in Jerusalem, and they're asking, where is this guy? Where is this guy? Let's keep going. Verse 3. When King Herod heard this, watch this, this is where everything turns. When King Herod heard this, he was deeply disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So he assembled all the chief priests and scribes of the people and asked them where the Messiah would be born. I don't know if you know a lot of history on King Herod. This is Herod the Great, 4 BC, maybe 6 BC, somewhere in there. He is a ruthless tyrant, and he's very fragile, especially when it comes to his throne. He has built this kingdom, and he's put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of focus into it, so much so, this is a little backdrop for you. His wife, his favorite wife, one of them, but his favorite, he thought she was going for his throne. So what did he do? He killed her. He had sons who he thought in his mind, at least in his skepticism, he was going, my sons are going for my throne. So what did he do? He killed them. This guy cares a lot about his throne. He cares a lot about what he's building and who he's becoming, right? And so what happens? King Herod hears from pagan astrologers who are probably high-ranking, not kings, but probably high-ranking because they're meeting with him. They've got a lot of money. They got some royalty to them, so there is something there. They're showing up, so they have respect. They have some clout to where he's listening to them, and they're going, hey, where's this child to be born? The king of the Jews. What does he do? He's deeply disturbed. Why? Because his kingdom's being threatened. His throne, his position, his place of power is being threatened. He's in a fragile state. As a matter of fact, as far as we can tell, he's on the tail end of his end as a king. And so he's like, man, clamping down, holding on to control. I don't want anybody getting in the way of this. I'm going to do everything I can. So he's deeply disturbed. So what does he do? He reaches out to all the chief priests and the scribes of the people. Like, he's immediately going into full-on war mode. Like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to take care of this, right? So he's a ruthless king. I just want you to think about this. As he's feeling threatened, I know he's a king. And I know in so many ways you think, okay, tyrant, ruthless leader, not me. All of us can relate to King Herod in this moment. Because all of us, at times in our lives, feel like the kingdoms that we're building that bring us purpose and life and hope and joy feel threatened at times. And we act in crazy ways. And we try to protect it. We try to guard it. We do everything that we can so that no one can touch it, right? So here's a question for you. What are we clinging to so tightly that we can't let Jesus reign? What is it in your life? Career, relationship, approval of others, plans that you have, schedule that you built. What is it? When we cling to control, we miss the true king. Herod is missing it. He's grasping for everything to try and get out of it. He's going to the scribes and the religious leaders. Now, I want you to hear this. Who are the scribes and religious leaders? They are the elite of the elite. If anybody has a question about the law in the Old Testament or what to do or how to live or how to be, they're going to go to those guys. So what does he do? He goes to them and he says, hey, answer this for me. I want to figure this out. So let's keep going. Verse 5. So here's their answer to King Herod. In Bethlehem of Judea, they told him. That's where the Messiah, the king, is going to be born. That's where it's at. Because this is what was written by the prophets. So they quote the Old Testament with some nuances, Matthew. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. Because out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel. So they quote Micah chapter 5, verse 2. I just want to do a little comparison for you. Because I want you to see the two side by side. It's really close. So Micah 5:2. Bethlehem, you are small among the clans of Judah. I want to stop. What does it say over here? You, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. What's the picture? Micah is a prophecy pointing forward to a future event where a Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. They're in line there. That's where the coming king is going to be. But then what does it say? It says, and you are small among the clans of Judah. In other words, Bethlehem is insignificant. There's nothing special about it. What does Matthew cue us in on? Yeah, it would seem that way, but what does he say? Are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. You know what he's saying? Because Jesus is born there, he's the greatest ruler that has ever lived. So yeah, it's a small town, it's insignificant, it seems like it doesn't matter, but out of this place, out of Bethlehem, the reigning, ruling king of the universe is born. This is not a small thing, not the least among rulers, because actually King Herod's not on the throne, Jesus is. He just doesn't know it. That's the picture. This is a big quote, and then it goes on. He says, his origin is from antiquity, speaking of the coming king, speaking of the one who will be born. He is what? From ancient times. I think the language here is pointing to the Ancient of Days. Yahweh, God himself. There will be one who is born, who is man and God, and he will fulfill everything that has been prophesied in the Old Testament. It's Jesus. It's Jesus. He's the king. He's the guy. That's what Matthew's saying. Because out of you, out of Bethlehem, out of this location, will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. What's he pointing to? Why say all that? What's Matthew getting at? He's pointing to 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 2. You will shepherd my people Israel and be ruler over Israel. This is pointing to a child who will be born, who will be the ruler of Israel, and really, as we see Matthew unfold, all the nations. It's Jesus. He's the guy. He's the guy. David Platt said it this way: the place where King David was born, Bethlehem, becomes the point where King Jesus is born. So I just want to dial in for just a second because I want to span out. I don't want y'all to miss this because this is huge. Isn't it wild that, man, these religious leaders knew the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem? They knew it. They even showed the prophecy. They're like, yeah, Micah 5:2, it says this. They're pointing to it. He's going to be born out of Bethlehem. Jesus is born out of Bethlehem. They literally see pagan astronomers come all the way from hundreds and hundreds of miles, okay? Probably 3 to 4 weeks worth of travel. They travel all this distance to come and say, we want to see the son who was born. A star led us here. And what do the religious leaders do? Out of all of this crazy, their response is apathy. As a matter of fact, as we go through the gospel, do you know what they actually do? They reject Jesus. He comes and he teaches like no other prophet before him. He has authority that they've never seen. And what do? They just bypass him. They reject him. They act as if he's not real. They act as if he's insignificant. They act as if he's not the coming king that everyone was waiting for. It's crazy. They reject him altogether. I mean, so I just want to compare and contrast Magi versus religious leaders. Again, they're pagan astronomers from the east, traveled hundreds of miles. They're going to worship Jesus in a moment. They're going to offer him gifts. And then we have the religious elite, the godly people, the ones who know the scriptures, the ones who we would consider to be great individuals. What do? What do? Nothing. Their knowledge doesn't translate into action of worship. That's wild. How often, think about this, how often do we know about Jesus but fail to respond to him? Like we go through the motions, we check the boxes, we give just enough to feel good about ourselves, right? But the real king, what does he deserve? So much more than that. He deserves your whole heart. Jesus spoke of these religious leaders a little bit later on. You know what he said about them? Keep in mind, just don't forget. Godly seeming individuals who are checking all of the boxes, going through all the motions. What does he say? Matthew chapter 15, verse 8. These people, these religious leaders, they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. They did everything right on the outside seemingly, but man, their hearts were so far from God. They missed it. They missed it bad. How many of us, just go here for a second with your own life. It's not about them. Think about what's going on in your life. How many of us are honoring God outwardly, but inwardly, man, we're so far from God right now. Like we're struggling and we're trying to cling on and hold on and control everything in our lives, and God's saying, let it go. I'm right here. I love you. I died for you. I'm coming for you. Would you just surrender? Would you follow me? Would you, like the Magi, would you be with me? This is why I love new believers, in all honesty. Why do I love new believers? Because when they come to know Jesus and it clicks for them, they are abandoned everything. Money, schedule, priorities, everything. Why? Because they recognize they have a new king. They have recognized that, man, they have been going a certain direction for a long time. They've been creating, building, and controlling, and all of a sudden they realize in a moment, oh my gosh, this life isn't about me. I'm not the center of my life. Jesus is the center of my life. I'm going to do whatever he wants me to do. I'm going to go wherever he wants me to go. You're the king. I'm no longer the king. I'm off the throne. You're the guy. I want to stay around people like that. I want to be a person who is like that, where Jesus is the center of my life and everything else flows out of it. Right? Amen. Like we want to be a people who follow Jesus. And that's what we see again and again here. So let's keep going, verse 7. Then Herod, what does he do? His kingdom's being threatened. He's in a fragile state. He's been exposed. What does it say? Then Herod secretly summoned these wise men and asked them the exact time the star appeared. And then what did he do? He said, okay, I'm sending you to Bethlehem, and said, go and search carefully for the child. When you find him, report back to me so that I can go and worship him. Now, what is Herod doing? He's lying. He wants to kill Jesus. We know that. We know that because we see the fullness of the scriptures. He wants to kill Jesus, but he tells them, hey, when you find him, I'm a nice guy. I want the same thing that you do. I want to worship him too. Bring him on. Let me know where he is, okay? And so they go 5 to 6 miles from Jerusalem to Bethlehem to meet Jesus. Verse 9, it picks up. After hearing the king, they went on their way, and there it was, the star they had seen at its rising. It led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. This is crazy. You realize this. Traveling thousands of miles and a star is leading them to Jesus. If I told y'all a star led me to go make so-and-so amount of money, y'all be like, dude, Clint has lost he's lost it, right? Like he's going psycho. But that's what's taking place here. And when they saw the star, they were what? They were overwhelmed with joy. Pagan officials, right? Traveling. Literally, I want to paint it because I don't want you to miss it. These guys do not follow God, not Yahweh. They're astrologers. They literally put aside their schedule, everything that they're doing. They take a 4 to 5 to maybe 9-week trip, sacrificing time, energy, schedule, money, all that it takes to get there. They're traveling 20 miles a day, and what do? They come to find a king that was born by being led by a star. This is insane. This is insane. Listen, I moved to Florida 7 years ago, okay? And when I got here, there's a lot of chatter and a lot of talk about, oh, Clint, you gotta see this. There's rocket launches here. There's comets. There's stars. There's all this stuff you need to see. And I'm just gonna be honest. Every time I have gone out of my house to go and see whatever it was, I've gone out and be like, okay, like cool, whee, right? Like awesome. It was neat, you know. Now I'm gonna go back to my house, and probably the next time you tell me about it, I'm probably not gonna go out of my house, just to be honest. Now, some of y'all are saying, well, listen, it's because of where you live, you can't see what I see. Maybe you're 100% right. Maybe I need to come over to your place, see it where you see it, and it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna blow my mind. But every time I go out, I'm like, it's fine. Like, it's okay. These guys travel hundreds of miles by a star. This is supernatural. This is not, it's okay. It's not fine. This is God showing up to pagan individuals who probably follow another God. What's crazy is it's like the people who are the farthest from God end up being the closest to God. And all of the people that we think are the closest to God end up being the farthest from God. This is crazy. Matthew's going to do this again and again and again as we go through the Gospels. Mind-blowing. We have a lot to think about, man. We are in the middle of Florida. Our lives are pretty easy considering, and God is continually challenging us. Where are we at with Jesus, right? And what do? These pagan astronomers, verse 11, entering the house. They saw the child with Mary, his mother. What do, man? They fall to their knees. They worshiped him. Then they opened up their treasures. Listen to that language. And presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Man, these are not Judaistic followers of Yahweh. They're pagan astronomers. I keep saying it, but like they're falling on their knees. They're worshiping him. Why? Because they believe he's deity. They believe he's God. They don't believe that he's just some kid. They believe that he is God in the flesh. And what do? Because they actually worship him, because they actually love him, because they actually are for whatever's going on, because they're being led by our supernatural, they start opening up their wallets. They start handing out gifts. They start giving their treasures to Jesus. True followers. I'm just going to say it again. Change in schedule. Change in focus. Their entire lives are centered around finding Jesus, including their finances. Everything about them has changed. What do the religious elite do? These, ones who know the scriptures, the complete opposite. They don't bow down, they don't worship, they don't offer their gifts. They are just the religious elite, doing their own thing, building their own kingdom. All of these circumstances led to this moment. Just go here for a second. What circumstances have led you to worship God? Think about that. Like, are you coming to a place in your life right now where you're going, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to see it. It's not about me. It's about him. Everything I've ever wanted is not found here. It's found in him. He's the center, the source of my life, and everything else flows from it. Everything. Not some things, everything. When was the first time you realized that Jesus was the king of your life? Not just the Messiah, not just the rescuer, the king of your life. Rules and reigns every area, right? When they met the true king, they gave generously. It says their treasures, they overflowed with generosity. I tried to find, I couldn't, just to be honest. I tried to find out what is gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Like there's all this debate about all the reasons why. It's a debate. They don't know exactly. What we do know is they offered up their treasures to Jesus. And from all that I could grasp, it was thousands of dollars worth of gifts to Jesus. So it's a sacrifice. Like they are showing up. It's crazy. Verse 12, and being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their own country hundreds of miles away by another route. Notice they had a choice. These are most likely high-ranking officials. The King Herod himself, who they are in his land at this point, what does he say? Come back to me. Show me where the boy is. It's not a command in the sense of I'll kill you, but it's, hey, I'm a king and I'm asking you to do something for me. You're going to want to do it. What do? They have a choice to make. We can follow the false king or we can obey the real king. They have a dream and God says, hey, don't go to him. He doesn't have good intentions. What do? Who do they follow? Who do they obey? Who do they listen to? Yahweh. They listen to God. And they say, I reject the approval and all the danger that might come from this, and I'm going to follow Jesus no matter what. We're going another route. We're headed back hundreds of miles. I'm going to say it this way. You can't serve two kings. The disciples, Jesus says it this way, you can't have two masters. You can't. The Magi's decision after meeting Jesus, they're warned in a dream, and they obey Jesus, and they reject Herod, right? Herod's resistance, Herod clings to his power, tries to eliminate Jesus, showing that Jesus is the king, and that he's afraid, he's clinging, he's holding on. And so Herod's fear that Jesus' birth Why? Because a star showed that he was the guy. It was a threat to his kingdom. The Magi, what do? They worship Jesus because they recognize him as the true king. The religious leaders, they missed it entirely. That's the picture. The real king threatens every kingdom, including yours. That's the picture. And so hey, I want you to just think about this. What kingdom are you clinging to today? Like, what is it? What would it look like for you to surrender it to Jesus? The kingdoms we build, our careers, reputations, even families, man, they may make us feel secure, but deep down, they're fragile. We can't control them. We can't hold on to them. We have to trust God with them, right? And I want you to hear this. Jesus doesn't come to destroy you or these things. Jesus comes to reign and rule in your life, which means you take those things and you say, man, I thank you for them. And whatever happens with them, however it happens, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give these things to you. I'm going to surrender to them. I'm not going to hold on to my schedule. I'm not going to hold on to my family. I'm not going to hold on to this relationship, to this thing that's happening in my life. No. I give them to you because you're the king of my life. I no longer rule. I no longer reign. I'm not the center of everything in my life. Jesus, you're the center, and it's because it's better for me. Because you have so much better for me than I do. I can't control it anyways. You love me. I believe the gospel. That's what we say as followers of Jesus. We believe that Jesus came and died for us. He gave his life so that we could find life. He's saying, let go. Let go. It's going to be okay. Whatever it is, whatever you're facing, whatever kingdom you're trying to hold on to, let it go. I got you. I've got you. And so, man, as you process this, will you cling to your kingdom like Herod? Will you stay apathetic like the religious leaders? Or will you bow like the Magi and him be the king of your life? I'm going to give you some time to reflect. There's going to be a closing prayer. I just want you to, man, sit with the Lord. Process it, pray through it. We're going to give you a couple minutes. Pastor Mark's going to come out, close you out in prayer, and then